Hey, Thomas Kinzell.
Hey, Alexander Ferguson.
We're recording. Good to see you today.
Good to
Um,
see you too.
Thanks. Always good to see you. So we decided to have this little Zoom chat meeting and discuss my new single, Afterglow, that we wrote and produced together, and just decided to do a little behind the scenes chat about how we made the song. I guess that's what the video could be called, How We Made Afterglow. So Thomas Kinzell is a great friend of mine for the last, more years than it. I think we've known each other for longer than I think. What,
Yeah,
4 or 5 years now, I think, of good friendship. Um, Thomas,
yeah, at least that. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. We're both local musicians in the Victoria, BC, Canada music scene. Both keyboard players, played many live shows both together and with other groups around town. Thomas, you play with your lovely wife Christina Helene quite a bit, who's
yeah,
an amazing singer. Shout out to Christina. And then I have my own trio that I play around town. I play with a group called Impulse Response and Soul Shakers, and then Thomas, you've played gigs with me too. It's always been a really great live live music scene friendship. But I guess the thing that's kind of cool and unique about our friendship is that we started really bonding over recording and producing and microphones and gear and things like that. So. Uh,
yeah, yeah. I think it was when we realized we had the same gear that we just love, and then it just became like this nerd friendship from there on out,
yeah,
where like every time we talk, that's basically all we ever talk about.
yeah. Yeah, the gear brought us together. And I think it was kind of cool because uh, we're sort of not the exact same, but we're sort of like we're in similar places with recording and wanting to kind of build on the knowledge that we had, and it's been a one great resource for me anyway to share back and forth on, hey, I figured out if you do this with this microphone on this kick drum or on this keyboard sound that this happens, and being able to kind of share that back and forth just for fun, and then of course when we are doing recording projects, I've done a few for my bands Soul Shakers and Impulse Response, and you've done a number of recording projects. Then of course we have just that one good buddy to bounce off. Hey man, I'm getting nearing the end of the process here and I can't hear the song anymore. Does it sound okay? Can you
Yeah,
hear
exactly.
the song?
No, that's been really cool because like every time I text you with a question or you text me with a question, it sends us both to the research lab to go figure out the answer to that. And then we've learned one more thing. And that's sort of been really, really fun because you and I can both never let anything go. We have to figure out what the answer is, right?
True. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we both have to like tell ourselves to stop trying to figure out
Yeah.
things if it's
And
not.
some of the stuff is like so like in the big scheme of things is not even that important, yet we spend hours trying to figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun though. It's good.
It's a
So
lot of
anyway,
fun, yeah.
that's Thomas Kinzell, amazing, talented keyboard player, producer, recordist, recording engineer, um, Prophet Rev 2 player. He's very proud of his Rev 2 synth behind him right there. Um, so let's talk about Afterglow here. This is what we're here to talk about. So I'll ask you, like, we can kind of interview each other if we want here. How did the song start? Of course I know, but how
Well,
did
I mean, it's funny because you and I have talked for a long time about getting together and writing a song,
yeah.
and this is, of course, before all of the quarantine and everything, right? So obviously back then, I never thought that when we'd actually get together and write, that it would be long distance over the internet.
Yeah.
So that in itself was like a kind of a neat experience. Obviously, doing it in person is a whole other thing, but doing it this way was really neat to kind of keep connection going with people and kind of explore sort of new territory. And so when you said, "Hey, let's produce a song. Let's do it." I mean, we both had the time, and so what better way to spend our time than be creative.
I felt the same way.
And
I love that we went into it with the idea of let's just meet over Zoom, which we're doing right now here too. And you know, we both, as I say, live in Victoria, so you know, if it weren't COVID times, we probably would have met up in person. But meet over Zoom and just let's give a go at writing and sort of show up with nothing, or not much. Like I think I woke up in the morning that we were going to write, and I had sort of a loose idea about maybe writing a song that had something to do with being apart, right, with the COVID thing. But even that, like, that's all I had. You know, um, so it was kind of cool to show up and just get ideas rolling, you know,
yeah,
over Zoom and see what happened. I guess that's a good segue. We led into like, okay, the first thing that I remember doing is us just discussing topics of what we could write this song about. And I remember pulling up a pages, you know, document and just typing out any random ideas that came to us, and some of them connected, some of them were short phrases. We thought, ooh, that phrase, that's a lyric. And other times we thought, oh, that, you know, just writing down the basic discussion points that we both liked and thought, oh, that could be a song.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
Well, that was the great thing is you already had some points written down, and so the way sort of the lyrics evolved was basically from a lot of discussion you and I were having. And I think during one of our discussions, we were just, I don't know what we were talking about, and you randomly used the word afterglow, not even really thinking that that was going to be the song. And then at the end of the conversation, we had this light bulb moment, and I think you were the one who's like, "Wait a minute, Afterglow. There's our song."
Oh my
And
gosh.
then we just kind of went with it. We didn't really question it much. It just sounded like a great thing. And then we talked about, well, what does Afterglow mean? And then that's how we sort of honed in on the subject matter a bit more and started creating a story like we were like it's kind of we discussed it like we were scripting out a movie and
Yeah.
figuring out how do we tell a story with an arc and a purpose and so it's all that discussion that was really cool for me anyways to
Too. You
yeah
know, I love that part. I think, and those, like you said, like I think I said the word afterglow in a sentence, or you did, and those little happy accidents. You know, when you're writing a song, you don't always plan for all the ideas. You don't go, oh, this is how we're gonna write it. You know, so the little gems fall from the sky, right?
yeah
And when you and I both went, we knew, you know, write that one down when we both got excited about it. And afterglow was the
yeah
one that just stuck, right? And then yeah, we ended up writing about this sort of make believe relationship in sort of three different parts of, you know, timeline of the relationship. And the other thing that I liked about that, lyrically, is that we it seemed like you and I both pulled parts of our own experience from our own past relationships or current relationships and put them into this song that became this sort of, you know, relationship that neither one of you has, you and I have neither one of us actually been in exactly as the story of this relationship is in the song, but that, you know, I as the artist of the song, and that was kind of cool. We naturally got talking about, like, I was like, hey, I think I want to sing this. Is this okay if this
yeah
ends up being for me? And you were like, woohoo. um
well I sure as heck wasn't gonna sing it
yeah, yeah. Oh man, you don't give yourself enough credit. I've heard you sing. You got a good voice. um but it just, yeah, it feels like a song that I can sing from me, even though not all the plot points of the story are things that I've for sure experienced, but it still feels like I can connect to the story of it, and I think you could too. Like I remember us both bringing things in that felt like they were from our own experiences, which is great.
yeah I mean
Yeah,
and I always love songs that um visually bring you to a location and you can sort of imagine the setting
yeah.
of the story. So
Mm.
I think I think when we were sort of figuring this out, um, I mean, I think you have like more of was it is the right word aptitude for lyrics than I do naturally. So it was kind of cool when like whenever I'd come up with like I had the idea for the scenes, and I think in the first verse I was like, "Hey, what if this was the scene?" And we talked about this, and then we evolved to the next scene, the next part of the story, the second verse, and then the third scene, and kind of creating um, visuals with the lyrics, so the listener can kind of put themselves there into the story.
And you know, it's interesting. Like I have a background as an actor, as you know, and you know, I went to university for to actor training and things like that. And though I've moved more into music, you know, I still connect to songs from the perspective of an actor sometimes, or at least some of that ways of thinking about it. And they're singer ways of thinking about it too, but imagery and connecting to senses and thoughts and things that I've felt before to the song, so that I'm telling the story from a place that feels honest to me, you know, and natural. And I think some of the images of the songs, I go, okay, well, I picture this specific moment in my life during this verse or during the chorus, and then other parts as we wrote the story together of these scenes, as you said, I started to kind of, you know, how when you tell a story to somebody and they've never heard it before, you know, the person that's listening starts to kind of picture what it might have looked like, and I have that with some of the scenes that again I haven't experienced exactly that are in the song, or at least not exactly the way we've written them in the song.
Yeah.
So whether the images are from real life or something that came creatively as we wrote, they're both just sort of as vibrant as each other, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. All right, so that's kind of the lyrics and the
By the way, pro tip on lyric writing, um, and maybe this is not a pro tip. Maybe this is for the people that can't rhyme. But I, for example, always have Rhyme Zone open on one page to help me like figure out what's the next, like what words can I choose from that might rhyme with this thing, because I can never think of anything. So Rhyme Zone is the thing that saved me many times to keep my flow going. So anyways, thought
nice.
I'd throw that in there.
I find I do that if I'm feeling kind of stuck for what's the word to get across the meaning of what we're trying to say or could say, as well as maybe it does need to rhyme in this moment. Then I'll pull up
Yeah.
Google or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's cool. Nice. No, but you know, you selling yourself a little too short, I think, on the lyric writing. I really felt like that was very 50-50 on this song. Like I really felt like we ideas went back and forth, and
Yeah. No, it was really
some of the better.
complimentary, I thought too. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I like we kept each other in check when I was like, "Oh, what about this?" And you were like, "I don't get what that means." I'd be like, "Oh yeah, I don't either." You know, like
Yeah.
just to make sure the story was clear to both of us and felt poetic enough that it could be relatable by hopefully a lot of people. Yeah. Okay, so musically, I remember as once we had a sense of here's the outline of what we think our story is, and that evolved a little bit as we went. But we did kind of start with that. I remember playing like a little Rhodes part on the keyboard just beside me here, and just you know pulled up a Rhodes in Logic. I think I went straight. I always go straight to the Scarby. Shout out to Scarby,
Mm.
Native Instruments Rhodes. I know you use that too. We both love it, so
Yeah.
might as well mention
It's
gear
great.
we love. And just I don't know why, but I just went to this da 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 da, da, and I think that part came pretty quickly, as I recall.
Yeah, that was like one of the first things that happened when you started playing keys.
Yeah,
You had the chord, like the basic chord structure of like the first, I
yeah.
guess the verse or whatever it was, or the chorus, I guess.
Kind of
Yeah.
funny because I think of the you know those things as being maybe the reason you bring in Thomas Kinzel to work on your songs. You're an amazing keyboard player, and I mean I play keys too, but it's kind of interesting that part just kind of came to me. We both went, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's
Yeah.
something." Worked from there, and the melody, like, yeah, I guess mostly I kind of wrote most of the melody, but we talked back and forth a lot about what are the chords that really support the feeling of this story and this melody. I know the chorus was there really quickly, and then I did some background vocals, and I think that's maybe the moment that I kind of went, oh, this is a song. This is not just fun to be writing with a friend who knows what's going to happen. I was like, oh, I'm excited about this song. And here it is, you know, my new single. So, but when we added those background vocals, and so let's talk about how we did that a little bit. So you work in Cubase and I work in Logic Pro, and you're at your studio, I'm in my studio. In terms of sending the music back and forth so we could listen, we tried a bunch of things, like just running it through Zoom, and I got an old computer, so that got a little bit too slow. But what we ended up doing is just Dropboxing files back and forth, and so we could hear it. We both use this plugin called Listen To by Audio Movers is the company, and it's just a plugin you stick at the very end of your DAW, your recording software. So it's at after all the other effects and all this the recordings, and it just transmits the audio from what you're working on your computer to other people. And I sent you a link, you sent me a link, and I could hear you through my Safari, and you could hear, or I guess it's Chrome, and you could hear me through Chrome. And we could both work in our separate DAWs, and then we had a shared Dropbox folder, and we'd throw files in there and send it back and forth
Yeah.
to each
I
other.
th- I think when we were writing, I don't know if we actually had that plugin while we were writing. So that was still a bit of a thing where we were messing around with Zoom and or FaceTime and whatever. But like the Listen To plugin, I think really saved us once it got down to recording the parts and getting into like more of the production stuff
Started,
where
yeah.
we really needed to listen to each other's playback.
Yeah, I mean that was part of the fun of writing the song too. I think you and I both work this way. We kind of immediately get excited about a thought trail and we follow it. So we had a structure of the story we wanted to write. We had a bit of the melody of the chorus. We had some background vocals. And when we did get to the point where production came in as we worked, which a lot of people work that way in this day and age with Logic and GarageBand on your Mac and things like that. But we didn't write the song on piano, finish the song, and then start adding bass lines. We kind of did that in conjunction back and forth. So, and as I said, like you being a keyboard player and me being a keyboard player, it was really fun. We've talked about this, but to jump back and forth and like, oh, we need a bass part, but we also need a beat. I'll go make a beat. You start working on a bass sound, and you would pull up things on your Prophet Rev 2, and we both use various plug-in software instruments too. And I can't remember
Yeah.
which sound ended up coming from which.
Well,
So
actually, as far as the bass goes, I remember starting a bass patch on the Prophet, and at first we were like all like really into it, and then I remember kind of listening to it more, and it just didn't have what it needed. So I think we ended up using Trillion from Spectrasonics,
with
and just kind of modified a bass patch that was immediately just fat sound. It's just huge bass.
And
It was
Trillion,
perfect for
and
the
I've
yeah
talked about this, but there's that video of Charlie Puth talking about behind the scenes his song "Attention" that of course did really well, great song,
yeah
and everyone's asking him what's the bass part, and it's also Trillion, so
yeah.
it
Oh,
gets
nice.
not used on I think countless records, but
Yeah.
I love the sounds that are in there too. Yeah, we found a sound that was like pretty close to your Rev 2, but that just cut through a little bit more somehow.
Yeah, it was just more punchy and more. I forget. It was a sample from one of the. I don't know if it was a Moog or
Kind of felt like a Moog, yeah.
yeah.
Well done for
Anyways,
saying the
yeah,
word Moog right. There's so much debate on how to say Moog.
yeah,
Nice. Um, let's see. So yeah, and so we just kept writing the song. I think I remember us like really, pausing on the production and getting back to okay, what are the verses? And I think we did verse 1 and 2 in one session. We were like, oh, we've got it. And then we were like, what's this final part of the story? And we knew what it was sort of going to be about, but we hadn't fine tuned it yet. So I remember us like doing the next session, like getting that. And then we were like, I think we have the song. We may have changed one word here and there, but we had the melody and we had the chords by that point, and we had the song. And then we really dove into, yeah, bass sounds. Although I think that bass sound came earlier. What came after that? I made a beat using some sounds from Superior Drummer, both an acoustic kit as well as 808 samples and things like that. We wanted to kind of even at the outset, I remember us saying, "Hey, let's make something that sounds like you and I both have a background of playing R&B and jazz and soul, and you do other things too, and pop." But we decided let's lean this one just a little bit towards pop with the production, just because we were both excited to do it, not for any other reason other than I think we hadn't done that in the recent few months.
yeah,
So it was kind of layered in some sounds that we thought, well, this is not the way we would play it exactly live with our trios and our bands, but something that's a little more dive into our producer selves, which I really enjoyed doing for
yeah.
sure.
And the funny thing about this entire production, I thought, was that the more we'd listen to a part we created, the one thing that happened a lot was we just started deleting things and making things more sparse and even more sparse.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of space in the song.
Yeah.
Um, and
That feels right for the
yeah,
story because like the chorus goes, I can feel you And then there's this synth that goes, ah, in the afterglow, ah. I sang probably the wrong notes. I
Yeah.
can't remember exactly. But there's this sort of echoey afterglow sound synth. And I think
Hmm.
that was just Logic's alchemy. We found a sound, turned the cutoff, down a little bit, so it was a little bit more of a muted sound, and just went with it. I remember liking that process with all the synths that we have, just kind of jumping to something, and if that gave us a sound that went ooh, we said yes, and if it gave us a sound so oh no, it's not quite it. Sometimes we would stay in that synth and find another sound. Sometimes we would go, let's just jump to this and this, like I went
Yeah.
to alchemy rather than using your prophet, which we always kind of lean to because it's
Yeah.
the program and
Well, that actually brings up an interesting point because there's like always an ongoing debate about what's better, analog or digital or, software synths or whatever. And I always kind of agreed with the philosophy of it's all good because it all has its own strengths and weaknesses and it all has a specific thing that it brings to the playing field. So, yeah, I always try and, I love going to the Prophet for stuff because I just love it and it's tactile and it sounds great. But a lot of the synth sounds that I know I sent you um, were just from software synths
yeah.
because I don't think. Oh, and that was the other thing. I was portable a lot of the time where I wasn't in my studio, so I didn't always have my Prophet with me,
Yeah.
and that didn't really stop us because I was like, well, I don't have my Prophet, so let's pull up just a synth inside Cubase and see what we can do. And
Like the age old adage of you can debate back and forth what sounds better, and you and I talk about that all the time because it's fun, and I love when things sound beautiful, and I love the tones of microphones and preamps and compressors and what they do to saturate things. But in the end, if you've got a song and also the parts of the instrumentation in that song, if that does justice to the song, that's going to be the first thing that you go ooh. I'm not saying the soft synths sound bad; they sound great, but it's the sound that made us go ooh, that's right.
yeah,
This feeling of the
so
you know
So then why would you if it makes you go ooh, why would you delete it and recreate it on an analog synth or whatever just because of its analog? If
yeah.
you already like the sound, it's okay.
I
It's
think that's
yeah.
that's part of what I loved about this session with you is that I think you and I really can get into, as you say, we can't let things go. We got to figure out this one little question in Logic and Cubase, and we follow that forever until we find an answer or we give up. For now, anyway. And that's great, and I love doing that with you. But in this case, we really focused on cool. Don't know the answer to that, but let's follow that next impulse, that next idea for the song as being the main interaction, which is really cool because then it focused our work. It
Yeah.
kind of all came together. So we could pull on all of the nerding we've done with
Yeah.
all the learning we've done, but it was about the song for sure as
Yeah.
we worked, I think. Yeah.
So yeah, I just want to add a quick thing just about the production flow, which I just thought was really neat. Once we got into a groove, um, we were listening to each other's playback through the listen to plugin and everything, and then we could pretty much in real time produce each other. Like I remember when I did the final bass line, you were listening to it live as I was playing it,
Yeah.
in pretty much lossless quality, um, and and then whenever you said, "Oh, kid, can you change something here?" It would be instantaneous. I would go back. I would change that bass line a little bit, and then as soon as we were both happy with it,
Yeah.
I would export it, and I'd have my export folder set to Dropbox. So as soon as it was exported, it would come up on your end.
Yeah.
You would fly it into Logic because I don't know if we mentioned this, but you were the producer, and
The
the
main
project
was my
main session was happening on your machine in
Yep.
Logic.
And I
Yeah,
think we just decided to work that way because as we wrote, we started to go, oh, I think this is my song as an artist that I'm going to be releasing. So it's sort
yeah,
of, as it evolved, yeah, I took the lead a little bit more as the guys saying, I think I want this as the final answer if we couldn't answer a question. So
yeah,
we decided to throw the session in my computer just so that I'd have it. And also, ended up that I did the sort of, we haven't gotten there yet, but did the mixing and the mastering and stuff. So I
yeah,
just, that I could have it and finish it in case you got busy or I got busy. And yeah.
yeah. Yeah, no, so I thought it was fantastic. So I'd export something, and like a couple of seconds later, you'd go, "Okay, I've got it. It was in your session. You hit play. There it was."
Totally.
And I thought the flow was actually very, very cool. Considering sort of the limitations of Zoom and internet stuff, it was great.
If anything, it was a limitation for sure, but it also was the opposite of that. It was an opportunity to work from both of our studios at the same time, which normally I'd go to your studio, you'd go to my studio, and maybe bring a little bit of my gear or vice versa. Previous
Yeah.
sessions we've done together. This time we had all our tools right there, ready to go. Yeah, yeah, cool.
Cool.
What else? And then, we've got our lives and our other projects, so we got a little bit busier, and I just decided like I'm gonna go record the vocals. Plus, you know, I got the gear and the mics, and I'm doing the singing, so I decided to go actually do the real thing in my studio. I've got a little dead room over there. Threw up it was recorded on a Neumann U87. Let's get nerdy with gear. Running through 1073 Universal Audio Unison emulation of a 1073. Running in through another Universal Audio plugin of an LA2A compressor going on the way in. That's it. Just really simple, straightforward, classic recording chain. Even if part of it's digitized, but so many hit songs these days and non-hit songs are run through the U80 stuff. They just sound
And
amazing.
you were just slamming the compressor on the way in, right?
Well, that's the cool thing is that I actually didn't know because I recorded in the dead room and I used there's like a iPad app to control Logic, but I didn't have the visual of the compressor. I used the settings of an old session that I had done where I was singing for another project. So I just kind of trusted that it would slam as much as it probably did on the last one, which I was happy, which hopefully wasn't too much.
Yeah.
So I don't actually know how much it was being compressed on the way in. I just know that it was reasonable to
Yeah.
what I had liked in a previous session where had seen the meter moved.
So it kind of shines a big light on use your ears and don't get obsessed with
Yeah.
where the needle is. If it sounded like the result that you were hoping for, then great, go with it. Don't question it, right?
Commit, if you go,
Yeah,
"Oh, sounds good,
yeah,
unless, maybe don't commit to
yeah.
some horribly over distorted sound that you don't like.
Right. Yeah, that's advice if you know how to listen for what you're going for.
Yeah.
If you don't quite have the ear for it, um, we'd probably suggest to even leave the compressor off altogether and just capture it as naturally as
I think
possible.
if you're feeling unsure, capture it as naturally as possible. But if you kind of
Yeah,
go, oh, that's starting to get a tone I like, and I know I want to go for this song, yeah, dive in. I like that philosophy. Again, you could debate forever, but that's kind of what we did. And then I just showed up with vocals, and then I met back up with you, and you kind of helped me figure out the comping of editing which take of which sentence and which word. I think I did maybe 4 or 5 takes, and I remember not being happy with the chorus because I was really the structure of the song, we kind of, as we got into production, built from very quiet and intimate and almost, it starts where you can't hear it and there's a little breath and it's like, oh, what is that? And by the end it gets quite full and a little bit more epic sounding. And I remember thinking, oh, so the obvious gut reaction is the vocals also need to get more epic. But so I was trying to sing with like more energy and more intensity by the end on the chorus, and it just didn't work. And we realized that the sentiment of the chorus is about there's an intimacy to it and a little like an ease. It's about sort of, we haven't talked about the story that much, but it's sort of about when you're not with the person that you love, that you still feel the sense of them and you
yeah,
still can sort of connect to them in your own way, even though they're not there and they're not, maybe not experiencing it in the same way. But the afterglow is that feeling of that feeling they bring you, staying with you when they're not around, whether it's in a long distance relationship or whether it's just not together that day. So that kind of that feeling of that had to feel intimate even when it got epic at the end. So the production around the vocals get big and epic, and they're the more vocals get layered, but the actual lead had to feel still intimate and a little bit more on the subtle side. And once I realized that, I redid all the choruses, and we were basically there, and felt great.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's definitely an interesting juxtaposition of like the track basically and
yeah,
its energy,
yeah,
and the cliche thought or the natural sort of thought is to go, oh, okay, well the vocals have to match that energy, right?
yes.
So the fact that we redid that, or you redid that, and sort of took the opposite approach where you had this more subtle vocal over top of that energy, that kind of thing doesn't always work, but in this case, it was definitely the answer. It was, yeah,
I think as a singer, when it feels soulful and natural, when your voice is coming out naturally and you're not trying to make it sound like something. It's a classic,
Yeah, yeah,
that's when you go, oh, there we go. That's the take to keep. So yeah, I think that's what happened with that is when it just flowed out of me easily, rather than trying to make it sound louder because we were in the louder part of the song.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and then we did some fun things. I just, continuing to talk about production because you and I love to talk about that, whether this is of interest to people or not. I don't care. We're talking about it. I remember at the very end when it does get really big and there's more drums come in, more synths come in that are very spacious and atmospheric. The synth, that process was really cool. I found a synth in Alchemy because we both had this idea that the synth would kind of drone at the end, go and kind of soar, because the last verse talks about one of the people in the relationship going on a flight and moving to Toronto basically for a job, or that's the implication. So the flight and the soaring and that kind of idea, that imagery, and I found a sound in Alchemy while you found a sound in your Prophet, and you redid it a few times.
Hmm.
And again, because of this awesome Listen To plugin, we could send each other pretty real time. You can mute each other like in Zoom, but you can also just say, hey man, can I get your attention? What do you think about this sound? And you'd give feedback to the sound I was making in Alchemy, and I'd give feedback to the sound you're making in the Prophet. And we ended up just layering those two together because yours did something on the top end that mine did, or sort of in the mid, the fullness in the mid range that mine didn't, and vice versa. And mine
Yeah,
had
yeah,
kind of the brightness that we actually tamed a little bit with a bit of a cutoff. But I love that there's a synth part. It sounds like one synth being played, but it actually is you and me, two separate performances of just playing the same chords, basically, and just layering them together. And that created, when we hit that moment, that was a moment for me that I went, oh, yeah, this is really
yeah,
coming
yeah.
along with the production. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, as far as the sound itself goes, for the patch nerds out there, it's it's not that complicated of a patch or that involved. It's basically sort of a, a basic string, brassy string sound, right? And I mean, I won't get into the details of how I made it, other than I think I used an LFO that kind of reset after every, or the cycle was like a 1 bar cycle, and I think it was like a sawtooth LFO that I mapped to the cutoff filter so that it would kind of open up and then come back down and open up again after every bar, sort of thing. And it just kind of had this nice swelling feel throughout the outro.
On my side, or not on my side, but on the Alchemy side, the other synth, it had this top end that kind of sizzled, and yours, because of the cutoff filter was set to that FO, would kind of, and it would come up and sort of meet that tone and then fade down. So there's this
Yeah.
movement with, particularly with the synth that you sent me, which I love so much.
Nice.
It does feel like soaring at the end, which that ending should feel. She
Yeah.
the person in the relationship is moving away, but that the afterglow is still there and it's still soaring, and there's some questions in how I think it built into the lyrics too about we never wanted to land on something where we're like, yes, this relationship's going to for sure work out and be perfect at the end, but we still wanted to lean it towards I think these two will make it, that there's a joy or at least a happiness about the relationship at the end, even if there's some questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it feels like that to me.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, you know,
Definitely doesn't tie up the story. It makes you wonder what did happen.
and it ends on a question. It ends on the lyric, "Do you feel it?" Like asking, "Does the other person also feel this afterglow?" So there is some unsureness, but it still does feel like a mostly happy song to me. It feels like a
Yeah.
joyous song. Yeah. All right. What else should we talk about? I guess the other thing is uh, mixing and mastering. I ended up doing the mixing and mastering because you got busy one particular week, and I was like, "Man, I'm excited about this song. Let's just finish it." So
Yeah.
I dove into the mix. Do you want to ask me questions about
Yeah. Actually,
trying to answer?
oh wow, we just lost so many people on our feed. No, just kidding. Here we go, deep into nerd territory.
Nerding.
Okay.
The YouTube
Um,
videos the views are dropping. Like how?
yeah, I was weird. Weird. Yeah. Um, well, I mean, I'm a super, like, I'm really into mixing. I'm a total mix nerd, and I spend way too much time on YouTube learning about this. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if I had glasses right now.
I think we got to give a shout out too in terms of gear. Yeah, this isn't gear, but you and I both love both the mix with the masters. Um, sort of tutorial and interview videos, and also the Pure Mix website is amazing, and we've
Yeah.
learned that. We
Yeah. I mean, a huge shout out to anyone who's doing that kind of stuff nowadays. Like, um, not that we've been doing this like a really long time, but I mean, when I first started getting into mixing, there was none of this was available, and now we have, you know, our idols, the guys we look up to, showing us how to do this stuff over YouTube and over websites that you can just go in and so I mean, you and I have probably both learned m- probably most of what we know now through those kind of
yeah, that
websites and
and,
through
and,
those,
and
yeah,
the classic just doing it and trying it and
and
using.
doing and trying it and
Yeah,
just
absolutely. It was.
trial and error yourself, right? I mean, you can sit there and watch 100 videos. If you never apply anything and try it yourself, you're not going to really learn it.
I went through. I will move along for this, but I went through a phase with mixing and recording where I just wanted to learn as much information as possible, and I almost didn't apply it right away, which was fine. Maybe I should have, but there was a sense of I just want to take it all in, and then now I feel I'm at a place where I still do that, but I also I'm like, cool. I've got 8 choices for in my brain on how to mix this vocal. Let's just follow my gut and pick one right now and make something. So I'm a little bit more active with it now, which I think is a good thing. But yeah, I love learning too. So
Yeah,
okay, ask away on.
paint with broad strokes and then whittle it down as you need, right?
Yeah,
Rather than get caught up in the fine details right away.
for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, I was really excited to like mix this with you, and then right as we were about to start that, I got busy with projects and I couldn't really join you on that. So I think we did one session together, and then you basically took it from there. So I actually have no idea what you did, but it sounds amazing. So
Hey, I'm happy with it.
where should we begin? If you do want to kind of talk us through your basic setup of the mix, if you used sort of master bus processing at all, and how did you approach it?
Yeah.
Was it 8 million plugins, or was it more of a natural approach? Let us know.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's whatever each sound or moment needed. Using the song as the guide. Like, I want it to feel like this or like this, and then trying a few things until you get there, rather than going, I always do this. I think I sort of started, yeah, a little bit of master brush. Well, you and I talked. We did have that one little short session before I did most of the mix. We threw in the Fairchild emulation, the Universal Audio Fairchild emulation, on the master bus for a little bit of compression, but we just wanted to see what tone it would give us, and it immediately added some sizzle to the top with all of those, amazing saturation qualities that it has. And you and I immediately went, oh. So, again, when we went, whoa, yay, follow that. What else? Yeah, I did a lot of the master bus. I think we threw on that. We threw on uh the manly massive passive EQ just to get a kind of mix into a smiley face. So add a little low end, add a little top end, mix straight into it, and that way there's a little. I think Andrew Shep said this once: is a little less to do. Um, if you don't have to add all of those things to each individual channel, if you want to have
Yeah,
that curve a
yeah.
little.
So and master bus, like not going crazy on it, but if you know that you're going to add a little bit of top end at the end of your process, anyways,
Yeah.
add all that stuff at the beginning because that'll help you make decisions on a track per track basis that if you did all the EQing on your master bus last, you might have to then go back and like adjust a few things again.
Yeah.
So maybe setting up the master bus in a general sense first, right? And then mixing into it. I mean,
That's
there's
right.
probably multiple philosophies on that.
Started to do
Mhm.
it. For me, it's like mixing into where any if I know I'm going to add plugins on the master bus, rather than leaving that later to just go, oh wow, later, and have that moment of, oh wow, that was cool and new, to mix into it and to just get moving on it has worked for me lately. Yeah, I remember getting on the vocal pretty quickly. Couple more compressors in a row, other than the one that I printed on the way in, just to even it out. The classic trick of 1176 to catch the peak, so fast attack, quick release kind of thing, and then go into an LA2A to smooth it out. We don't have to get into every detail here, but just getting the vocal really, um,
Mhm.
compress it a little bit more so it's a little more even. And that worked very well, to the point that I didn't have to automate the level of the vocal up and down that much. I did a little bit in this section or on this word, but the compression seemed
Great.
to kind of get it in a place that there's a sound that I liked, and yeah.
Also a testament to your singing.
Oh, thank you.
I'm
Yeah,
sure you had a lot of control going into the thing, so you
yeah,
didn't have to like tame a whole bunch of stuff. So,
yeah. And I know
so
some
it's,
amazing
yeah.
singers that are really dynamic too, and that's great too. But yeah, different.
Mhm.
Yeah, this one had again. We were talking about the intimacy. It had a little bit more of an even feel for the song as well. Um, yeah. What else? I remember leaving the acoustic drums fairly alone. It went into just the Logic compressor. I always usually jump to like an API emulation, but just the Logic compressor did its thing. I can't even remember what settings it was on. I just went, "Yep, that's it." Um, just brightening things. I remember using the Trident EQ quite a bit to just give some things a little top end sizzle. Yeah, really simple. Just making sure that every sound in the production that we had enjoyed, it's pretty spacious production, just had a little moment where you went, "Oh, what's that?" Oh, we got to
Yeah.
say one more thing. I love the fact. So my first professional keyboard in the '90s, when I was a teenager and really getting into this stuff, was a Roland XB50, and the sounds on it were from the JV 1080. Saying that right? Yeah, 1080 module that they had at the same time, and that was the same, but just had the same sounds. So I have the some of the sounds from that. I have my old XB50 right over there. It's not in the best working order. Should probably look at that again. But I have a plug-in emulation from the Rolling Cloud of those sounds, and I love the fact it was just the right thing at the right time. That the beginning of the second verse is sort of pizzicato strings thing, and that's from basically from the XB50. It's from the JV 1080.
Awesome. Wasn't there a Mellotron sound from that as well that you chose, or was that from somewhere else?
There was a Mellotron. I think it was just the Logic Mellotron.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I love all that those sounds that even for me on a personal level that maybe doesn't get out to anyone else that I know that kind of connects my heart and soul to the song even more because of those memories I have with that keyboard growing up and thinking, hey, this is a song to use that again. So yeah. Um, but yeah, just bringing all those little things out in the mix and balancing it, and then I basically mixed into the master. I knew that I was going to do the mastering myself. I'm not a mastering engineer with 30 years experience. It maybe, maybe it would have been good had I sent it to someone else for another set of ears. I thought of even sending it to you, but I just hit that point where I was like, you know what? I want to get this done. Hot on the inspiration of it. I'm excited. I want to get it out and out into the world. So I just sort of mixed into the mastering. There's that two bus processing we did. I used the Oxford limiter, another UAD plugin. And a little bit of the Oxford inflator, where it just kind of excites everything in a particular way that only that plugin does. Yeah, but it's the first time I've ever mixed right into the mastering. Like the little bit of mastering I did was just
Mhm.
on the bus in the end, and I said, "There it is." Whereas usually, in the past too, I've been making more like EPs or albums with more than one song, where you want to get the balance of the songs between each other. This one, when I went, "Yay, I'm happy" on many different speakers. I tested it in the car, headphones, little head earbuds, all those things. When I went, "Yay, I'm happy," and I'd send them to you too. And when you and I both went, we could be pickier about this and never let this go, as you and I have talked about. Uh, when we said, "Hey, this is cool," then I decided that's it. That's the mastered version, and yeah.
Yeah.
So
And I guess another thing that plays into mixing is sort of we were mixing all along, not in a traditional mixing sense, but in a production sense, picking the right sounds. If we wanted a brighter hi hat, you would go find a different sample. We wouldn't go, oh well, let's try and figure out how to EQ this to make it brighter. We would just search for a sound that was already that of like what we wanted to hear, and
sure,
that kind of goes for every instrument in
there
the
was a little
production.
doing to brighten that hi hat after or to de-brighten it, but yeah, we tried to find the sounds in production that made us go, we're 95% of the way there for that sound. The one thing I did do in sort of mastering land, well, mixing slash mastering, because this was a kind of a fluid process in the end, is I took the mag EQ that has that beautiful air band on the top and really raised the top end because I was referencing it against the Sam Smith track that I thought this could maybe have a bit of a tone like the Sam Smith song that I was listening to. Not the song. They're not the same songs. You know, it wasn't inspiration for the song, but just the tone of the mix. I thought it might be one good reference track to get the brightness in the bottom end in the right place. And that Maggie cue, immediately realized everything was balanced, but it was just bass heavy, and it went like that. Here's the bass, here's the high end, and I took the Maggie cue and went, you know, a little more aggressively than normally, and I just went. And then I suddenly went, "Whoa, yes, that's it!" And you know, so it's sort of, yeah, again, using your ears to say this is what this needs to feel like, whether you're boosting things plus 5 decibels or plus 1 decibel, whatever gets it to the place that you go, yep, I'm happy. And I can't remember how much I did on the Maggie cue, but it was a little more than I thought it needed. But then when I did it, I went, yes, wow, yay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's great. And you know, for those of us that maybe don't have the most ideal mix situation, room, monitor wise or whatever, and we've been working on a song forever, and now we're completely unsure if this sounds like complete garbage or is it any good. Reference tracks are your savior. Like being able to A/B your mix against something that you know has been recorded and mixed and mastered well. It helps you at least gain perspective and be like, oh, okay, I'm totally in the ballpark.
Yeah.
It might not be the exact, you know, sound, but it kind of reassures you a little bit and helps you out. So reference tracks are a really good thing.
Yeah, I love them. Yeah, and you know, like it's kind of even from the philosophy. The reason I love to make music is I grew up listening to, well, you know, I'll be dating myself, to cassette tapes originally as a kid, but then mostly CDs in teenagehood when I really got into music, and you know, that music is the reason I wanted to go, hey, I want to do that too. I want to figure out how to make that. Got me into composing, songwriting, arranging, playing keyboards, singing, all of that stuff. So having a reference track is just almost a way. It like gives you a reference for tone, but it just gives you a little inspiration for the tone too. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it
Cool.
makes you feel good that you can create something that you know relates to that sound. That
I'm proud of the song,
yeah,
man. I've told you many times. You know, not on Zoom chats, but you know, over the phone, and I've loved this process working with you. So let's lead this to the end of our talk here, because we could go on forever about
yeah,
tech stuff and lose more YouTube.
yeah. Or we'd go down the rabbit hole for sure.
Yeah, I think we have already at this
Yeah,
point, which is it had to. It's you and me.
yeah.
So the question that I gave the heads up before this chat, but you know, I don't know your answer and you don't know my answer, and I don't even for sure know my answer right now. But I'll ask you first. What was your favorite part or favorite moment in this process of writing Afterglow and producing Afterglow with me? What was one moment that stands out for you?
Um, is it okay if I modify that question slightly for my own answer? Because
Yeah.
for me, it was less of a particular moment, but it was the process of writing the song that stood out to me and that I took away. Because I mean, I years ago did my own album and uh, with a friend of mine, Paul Wainwright, and we released this album, and it was basically all at least all the stuff that I wrote for the album was all instrumental. So
That's
I was always really, you know, pretty good at coming up with instrumental songs all day long, and it's the songwriting part where we introduce lyrics and all that stuff that I'd always scratch my head on, and um, my wife and I, Christina, we've been trying to write songs forever, and we'd always have mental blocks. At least I would, on how do we even begin a song and what topic do we write about and whatever. So what I took away from our experience was how to get that ball rolling, how to think about lyrics, how to come up with things through discussion, and sort of hearing your take on you know, let's not, you know, worry too much about if this is like a minor 7 flat 5, and let's worry more about does the lyric work here and does the melody work and does that chord even make sense here? So focusing on that side of things
story, the song.
um, was really inspiring for me. And after we finished our songwriting process, it opened up a creative door in my mind, and I've since then like written 3 or 4 songs and
Woohoo.
started working on stuff together. So that was the thing I really took away from this was
Yeah.
how to overcome that barrier and just commit to things and have a flow, and
Yeah.
how to if
Ha-
you're stuck, how to proceed, how to think your way out of it to the next part and keep the flow going. So
Cool.
that's my answer.
You know, and I think sometimes how to do that, in my experience, is just just like a relationship. Hey, let's bring it back to the song, but like working with the right person in the right moment. So like I think sometimes the reason it flowed well with you and I is just because you and I turns out right well together, and that conversation happened in a way that both kept us engaged and excited about the
Mm-hmm.
song. The song came. So just I really enjoyed writing with you. I've written many songs on my own, and I like that process. But there's an extra little bit of inspiration when you're writing with somebody, and you bounce ideas back and forth. So I really love that process too. That's awesome. Um, what else was I going to say? What one more little thing that I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
comment about your answer, and you can ask me the same question. Is I know I'm a big John Mayer fan when it comes to songwriting, and watched way too many interviews by him about songwriting and things like that over the years. I remember one point he said, and I can't remember what video or where this is from, um, that that it, you know, one way to know you really have a song is when the lyrics and the sound of the music come together as one, that it feels like the same thing. I remember hearing that and being like, that's exactly it for me anyway. um, I really well, it's not about agreeing or disagreeing, but I really relate to that, thinking about it in that way, where I feel like the most exciting songs are the ones where the lyrics sounds like the sound of the music and vice versa. And
Yeah.
I really think we captured, for me anyway, a feeling where I can perform the song, and be proud of the song in a way where the words and the music sounds like the same piece of art, you know?
Yeah. No, that's actually a really good point. It's like when your melody sounds like it was meant for those lyrics, and vice versa, when those lyrics were meant for that melody, and then the production, its job is to not screw that relationship up and just support it. You
Yeah.
know, maybe
And
that's
sometimes be
yeah,
part of the telling of the story too.
yeah. It can be part of the storytelling and just support it and not distract from the story. But yeah, when you have those melody or the melody and those lyrics uh, together in their own sort of relationship that makes complete sense, then yeah, then you've got a song.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think, and I think even the production, it can sometimes create the world that you're in, or it can be part of the story, or
Hmm.
production almost feels like part of the writing to me. I think it does to you too. I would guess
Oh yeah,
part
yeah,
of the
yeah.
part of the writing in or it can be.
Yeah.
Um, I guess you should ask me the final question there too.
Well, what was your favorite moment, part of the process?
Um, I did love what you're talking about for sure, but just to have, about the writing process of the actual songwriting was really inspiring to me too, working with you in that way. But just so I have a different answer, um, I think the moment that we were working on the chorus, and I hadn't even done the real vocals yet, but I think some of the lyrics were wrong. We only had half of the chorus written, and I just sang into my little SM7B here. Awesome, Mike. Um, the chorus that we did have, and I went, "Ooh, that's something." And then the moment where we started, I think you were working on a synth sound, and I said, "Hold on, let's mute each other. We'll be back in 5 minutes." And I went off, and I just added two harmonies to the main vocal that are on the main track now. Although I did redo them on a different mic after the fact, just to line up with the vocals. And I think some of the lyrics were wrong when we did that. But that moment where I added those two harmonies, and I suddenly went, oh, that's exciting. Like that was the moment that I thought this is a song that I'm going to be really excited about, not just an idea for a song. But I think that was a
Yeah.
really memorable moment for me when those background vocals got added and you and I just heard it. I think we both immediately went like, "Oh, whoa, there's like you get a little bit of that D'Angelo
I
layer."
was just gonna say, like when you hit play for me, I was like, it was instant sort of D'Angelo background
Yeah.
vocals, and it was like, yeah,
And you and I love that
this
neo
is
soul.
yeah, yeah,
But yeah, that
yeah,
was a moment for me that my, the hairs in the back of my neck went up and went, "Ooh, oh, I think that's something. I think this is a song and not just we're trying to write a song together or
yeah.
trying that out. Yeah. Yeah. That's my answer.
Cool. Yeah. So I hope that was really fun to listen to for anyone who's like thinking of doing the same thing or wondering how the process goes. And because I know like at the like I don't know about you, but we've had so many people throughout quarantine message us and be like, let's collaborate, let's do something together. and um and it's only happened a few times that we actually went through with it. I know you and I were both part of some projects that actually got finished, and
Yeah, yeah.
um,
This being one, Afterglow. Yeah.
yeah. So um, it was fun weeding through the tech stuff and figuring out how to even do this so that it has a flow,
Yeah.
um, and just to kind of watch this thing come together, and it came together pretty quick, actually.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it wasn't like a one session. Some songs I've written, whether on my own or with someone else, just it all happens boom right away.
yeah,
That didn't happen with this, but I liked it because it was just every time we did a session, even though it came pretty quickly, but it wasn't like all in one session, as I say. Every time we met, a new piece fell in that we both went, oh, yep, yep, that's
yeah,
the next puzzle piece of what this story is, of what this song is, what the music is, what the production is. So I was really happy with that it really flowed, regardless of speed or time.
yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool. Thanks, my friend. Loved writing this song with you and producing the song with you. And thanks so much for your work. I'm so excited to have this as my new single. Everyone, go find it, download it. Afterglow by Alexander Ferguson. I won't say my name that way every time, I promise. I was just
No, you have to.
on the video one. Thomas, you can attest I don't say my name like that in real life.
No, you pretty much do all the time.
Oh
No, no, you don't.
no. How do you say Thomas Kinzell then? You got to come up with a slick Hollywood, well, Victoria, BC version.
Yeah, I don't know.
You got to do
Uh,
like the deep radio voice. Thomas Kinzell.
yeah. No. Yeah, this is where we're talking about before we started this whole Zoom conversation was how awkward I was going to be on camera, and I'd have to like figure out how to maybe I should talk deeper and be a little bit more
Well, I can
radio sounding.
and as being your friend that you've come across very much like yourself today.
Great, good. I'm glad.
Thanks, my friend. Ciao.
Cheers.